Okay, welcome everyone. It's been a while. We are grieving heartbeats. This is Rick, man to heart, and Sita, that lost mama. And today we're talking about a huge topic in, I guess, secondary loss, isn't it? Work, returning to
Absolutely.
work, and how we navigated that. It's a huge one. So yeah, I guess
Yeah.
as the person, I feel like a lot of the burden falls on the men for the
Yeah,
whole.
stereotypically, yeah.
Yeah, because I have to say I feel it's a blessing that I had the time at home that I did. I think I desperately needed it, and I have to give thanks to you for that as well because I not only took my maternity leave, which I'm really grateful that I had the option to take, but I took an additional 2 years as well. I was not in the right headspace to return back to work. I know a lot of people
Yeah.
like going back for the distraction.
They do, yeah.
A lot of people told me to go back to work
I
actually.
had a lot of people say that too as well, that
Mm.
they needed to kind of get back to work. They needed to get to a space where they were quite busy. Um,
Do you think that prolongs the healing process though? Because I personally I feel like if I just distracted myself, grief would have seeped out of me in other ways along the years. Whereas,
Personally, I would agree. I would say, just from my personal experience or just from what I see from others, exactly that. If you don't actually address it full on when it needs to be addressed right at the start,
yeah,
and really understand that journey right from the beginning, I do really think that it starts to seep through. I mean, again, from a guy's perspective, um, my journey was very different to the typical kind of male who might experience something like this. Um, just because I was off, obviously, for so long, but it didn't start that way immediately. So I
of
think
course, yeah,
as soon as Adrian passed away, all of those kind of that financial pressure that today's kind of about and that you're mentioning,
yeah.
that all kind of hit immediately. So not only are you going through all the emotions, you first of all don't even understand yourself anymore, your situation. You're still
Yeah,
you're not even at the start of your journey, as I say so many times when it first hits and it first
because it is a
happens.
sudden rebirth,
Of course it is.
sudden rebirth,
Absolutely.
middle of your life.
Middle of your life,
Mm.
this just you're just dropped into this,
Yeah,
and you don't know what to do. You don't suddenly know who you are. You don't know what to do. You don't know your surroundings. There's just so many uncertainties that are just poured on you in one go, and then you have the financial kind of thing. And as we said,
of course.
stereotypically, not always the case, but stereotypically, that does fall on the guy.
Yeah, because
At that
women go
point,
through the physical process of either a miscarriage or
hundred
giving
percent.
birth.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there is a huge financial burden that falls on the couple as a whole. And
yeah.
usually men are expected to absolutely go back to work. It's not even thought about. I think
No, it's
with
not.
women now, it's so great that, after a miscarriage, women will be entitled to 2 weeks off, which is
Yeah,
incredible. And I'm actually mind blown that that wasn't a thing before. Like,
definitely.
and, I still remember actually one of my managers went through a miscarriage years ago and she was back at work on Monday
Yeah,
and she was trying to hold it in. She was so teary. She was snapping at people as well. And
yeah.
it just, she needed that break. And I don't know how understanding workplaces were, but the fact this is very recent, it just blows my mind. All these women who have just returned back to work when they're not in the mental state to.
But this is why it's such a touchy topic as well, because some people, because they feel like that's just the journey they need to follow, they think that's the right thing to do.
And it's
But
encouraged.
it is encouraged, definitely encouraged.
Yeah.
Well, even for guys as well. Now, you obviously have shared, you have paternity leave, you have that kind of shared leave.
Yeah.
If you were to have a baby, but it's still such a short time in either way. If you have a baby or for bereavement loss, that like
Yeah.
the time is
Well,
still so
the time
short.
that men get is only paternity, I think, is not very good anyway. But if there's a loss involved, men aren't really thought about that
No, they're not.
much.
No,
So the main expectation is why does the guy need to be at home? Just go back to
100%.
work. And that was, with how I was feeling, I was frightened for how you would be taking that as well.
Well, it's like you said when you say it, you notice how it starts to seep through in some people.
Yeah.
And that's obvious. Why wouldn't it be? You can't be in that right frame of mind to be working and going, traveling, going into an office, working in a working environment
Yeah.
when you're still trying to unpack everything else. And the only way, this isn't to say this is correct or this is fact. It's just my personal opinion, but the only way you can actually do that and go back to a work environment and think that it's okay is if you turn something else off. I
Yeah.
don't understand how. Like, I'm all about compartmentalizing, and I'm trying to understand this feeling and put it into this box and unpack it and deal with it as it needed to be dealt with. And my journey was kind of focused around trying to do that. I went back to work very quickly because that was just the normal thing to do. My situation was a bit
Was there
different.
pressure from work?
Um, Funnily enough, for me, no. And I was just about to say my situation was different because I was a contractor, but I don't think that just makes it that I don't think that alone makes the situation different. I I was very grateful to have a manager who was very understanding. But I think emotionally he got the connection because unfortunately for him he had suffered the same thing in the past
Right.
many years ago. But I think he could make that emotional connection. He understood. He got it. And from the minute I told him, he had said, don't come back. Just work from home. Do whatever could make my life easy at that time. He was willing
Because he
to
understood.
kind of do that. That immediately made the blow a little bit easier because I'd had that conversation. It's not that suddenly I wanted to go back to work,
Yeah.
but it just meant that that same burden or pressure or responsibility, I don't know, just kind of eased the kind of it just eased the edge a little bit in that
Yeah.
if I go back, I'm going into not necessarily a safe space, but my immediate
Yeah.
team I know are there. And I had built a really, really good relationship with all my other like kind of team members
Yeah.
on that team. I'd already been at Savills for like a year at that point, I think. So I just had a really, really good team, a really good backing, who were just there to try and meet me at whatever I needed at that time. So I did go back, but I still remember, and I think if you remember back to those first kind of days or even weeks when I was going back into the office, I think the first time I went back into the office, I sat down. It was like it must have been like 9:15. I think I sat down, logged in. Someone was going for a coffee and they wanted to ask me a couple of questions, and we did that. By the time I got back to my desk, I wanted to come home.
Yeah.
I generally, like when I say the mindset just wasn't there, I just didn't want to think about work or being there. All I could think about was you at home, first of all, and then also just this, and then nothingness. It was literally
Yeah.
like, how is Sita getting on at home?
And I was struggling at home.
You were struggling
I
at home,
was
which is
I was really struggling. I was by myself. I'm not that I minded being in slight isolation. I spoke about this. My way of grieving was just to be in my own space. But I
yeah,
think I was so, by that point, I was so paranoid about something's going to happen to everyone. So I was really on edge whenever you stepped out of the house that morning.
yeah,
Because in my head, it was like, I've lost my son out of nowhere.
mm,
It was negligence at the end of it, or, he was a healthy baby. It happened at the hands of someone else. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose everyone now. And I remember crying when my mum went for a dentist appointment. I watched the car go from the driveway. I
mm,
started bawling because I was just so worried. And then I became tense about just losing everybody in my life in one
yeah,
way or another. And it was so frightening. So to have you actually be at home the 15 months then you did take out to be at home, it was just a blessing. And I know, and this is what's really horrible because we had a huge safety net to fall back on.
we did. Yeah,
And it's a
that's the only
huge
reason I could do
privilege.
it.
It's the
Oh,
only reason. Look,
100%.
when my parents lost my sister, they didn't have a choice. They went back to work. And I feel so awful anytime my parents talk about this because it's like they lost, they lost their child after a long-term illness, and there was a lot to do. They're already so shattered from going back and forth from hospital for the year and a half to 2 years that they had gone back and forth. And I feel like they could have done with that time because their healing took years.
Yeah,
As witness to it, it did take them a long time. And I think
Yeah.
we've reached a healing point. Well, our healing is very, very different. I don't want to say we're healed. I don't think you can ever heal completely when you lose your child. But I think that initial shock, that initial stage, it took them a bit longer to get over for several different reasons, not just because they went back to work. Also, they had a
Yeah.
very unsupportive community because child
Unfortunately,
loss
they
and
do.
baby loss was so taboo back then. We're a lot more supported than them.
Definitely.
And this is why, well, it's kind of why they definitely should have had that understanding and time from work, but they didn't.
They didn't.
And there were financial implications. So it's a blessing, actually. And a lot of it was thanks to you because you went back to work for a little bit and I got to sit at home and just be,
But
because
even for me, like I said, with other guys that I know, that well, in this situation, you have to go back immediately. So yes, I did, but that was only for I think 2 or 3, maybe maximum 4 months, I think.
not a long time, yeah.
But for example, because of the backing that I had at work, first of all,
Yep.
although I was in the office and kind of trying to go back to doing that thing, and that just wasn't working out. That was only for the first couple of months, and after that, I think I primarily stayed at home. There was an understanding where I was really grateful that I could stay at home, and I was only going in a little bit. But I only did that for 3 or 4 months, I think, after.
Yeah.
Now, imagine people that just never get that break and they're just in that cycle. That's what I can't fathom. That's what I can't understand.
Yeah. Oh
Because
my God.
in those 3 or 4 months, if you actually ask me now, I don't remember much of those 3 or 4 months in terms of healing. I don't think those 3 or 4 months I'd even started to try and heal because it just wasn't time for it. It was just the added pressure of having to go into the office, the added pressure of having to allow outside noise, and whether that's good noise, bad noise. I hadn't had a chance to figure anything or any of that out yet.
Yeah.
And as a guy, there could be some encounters where you go out and I'm not saying you have a good time, but it's a good meeting where you can have a good conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't, a lot of the time people don't think about or talk about your triggers. As a guy, I should have no triggers, but what are my triggers? I don't know.
Yeah.
As a guy, I should just go back to work. That's a normal thing. So if I'm in work and I'm feeling a certain way, well, surely you just got to suck it up and get on with it because that's
Yeah.
what you need to do, right?
I've been upset before, and people a bit like I think it's 5 or 6 months in, and I started crying, and somebody was like, "Oh, still? What do you mean still?"
Yeah,
Yes,
still.
my son passed away 5 months ago, and he's
Yeah.
still not here, and he still will not be in the future. So yes, still,
Yeah.
I will cry at 70. Do you know what I mean? It's not gonna just disappear. It was
Yeah.
the shock on people's face is what bothers me, and this is probably why I didn't want to face the world again because it wasn't so much my grief, it was how do I stop myself from getting triggered because of something silly the opposite person will say or not understand, not even silly because some people mean well, but it's like it's still going to affect me and it's still going to hurt me. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
save myself from saving, just, from having a terrible conversation. And I was so worried to go back. And I remember someone saying to me actually that, oh, your work colleagues, will require some closure. Maybe you should go back to work and have a conversation with them. And I was like, why do they need? Maybe they do. I don't know. But also, that's not my
No, but
responsibility
yeah, exactly. And maybe
because
they do, but that's not your
I
responsibility.
feel like, when someone goes through a loss, it's devastating for everyone around you. But ultimately, my colleagues aren't going to think about me in 2 years' time. So I'm not going to put them at the priority of my list when I've just lost my son. I'm going to think about myself. I'm not going to travel into work, which is obviously a very triggering place for me now because I was there when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Every single day, 5 days a week, I was traveling in and out. I have so many memories attached to that place now, and I need to go back and explain that my son's passed away to everyone individually. Like,
Yeah.
it's not nice. And I did go back eventually to see everybody, and it was not nice. It wasn't a nice day
But
ultimately.
again, even
And some
for
people didn't understand.
they wouldn't, right?
No.
Yeah, because
Some people didn't want to know.
yeah. So yeah, you're right. Some people just they're not interested, and there's nothing you can do about that. But
No.
again, we talk so much about trying to understand those triggers or trying to remove yourself from certain situations or environments where you're now talking about an environment where you can't. You have to be there. You have to show
Yeah.
up. You have to act and be in a certain way. So it's not even about inviting that toxicity. That it's already there. And yes, you can have some good moments at work. Obviously, you've got your good people,
Yeah.
but like you've just said, not
There will always be
everyone. Yeah,
one, at least
there'll
one.
always
There
be
will always be at least
you'll
one.
always have your small group of people that get it. Again, if you've got a great manager like I did, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
But that's within your own immediate team, right? You've still got to put on a face at work. You still, you can't be running around the office with
Got to be professional, yeah.
yeah. You have to keep that professional face on. But yeah, it's
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you struggle with grief brain, but when I went back to work, and I went back to work a lot later than you, but
yeah.
I couldn't do the most simplest of tasks. And I was like, what is going on? I mean, when I did return to work and I did start somewhere new, which I'll come back to why shortly, but I took on a basically a graduate role, I'll say, in finance. Because I wanted to ease myself in. There was no way I could go back to exactly what I was doing. I'd been off for so long. It's like, and on top of that, I'm grieving. I've got depression. My brain is honestly not working. I don't think people really understand how terrible grief brain really, really is. It's made me cry several times. But
Mm.
the recruitment process itself was ridiculous because, like, agents would call me and I hadn't quite figured out how to explain the gap in my CV. So I just didn't. I just put, end date at this role was 2019. And then suddenly I'm just trying to look for a job in 2022. It was insane. So they'd ask that, like, what's this gap on your CV? And I'd say I was on bereavement leave. And they'd be like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, it's bereavement leave. So, someone passed away. And I keep pushing and pushing. I'm like, they don't want to know. Listen, I could sit here and I could mention any family member and I don't know how they take that. But I know if I say my baby or my child passed away, I'm going to get a really poor reaction. Yeah. So I didn't want to say that it was my son. But this one particular woman, I remember, she just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually I kind of just said it was someone really close. And I thought, please end it there. And no, she just, I don't get it. I don't get it. I was like, it was my son. And then she's like, oh. And that was it. And I was like, oh, God, here you go. Now, I've triggered you. You've triggered me. It's not good.
Yeah.
So that was really bad. But anyway, I remember getting onto an interview with the job I actually landed. And it was a really lovely guy. And one of the best managers I've ever had, honestly. But he was interviewing. He's like, oh, I see you have a gap on your CV. And I was like, oh, God, here we go. And I thought, let me just get out there. I was like, oh, so, yeah, my son passed away, unfortunately. So I just took some time out. And he was so understanding. Mm. He was so nice. He said, I'm so sorry for your loss. And just he didn't go off on an essay, but he just said the most basic thing. And it was all I needed. And there was funnily enough, another guy actually, an agent who'd done the same. And he was like, I'm so sorry. That is so sad. And I was like, this is it. This is great. And I was so happy it came from men as well.
Absolutely.
I was so happy.
Acknowledgement,
yeah. It was so lovely. And even as a manager, he was amazing.
Mm.
He was so understanding. If I was taking out some time and he knew it was something to do with Arjun, and like, because we had hearings, we had inquests going on. So there was dotted time being taken out. He was like, you're not taking that as holiday. Just take it. It's fine. As long as you're doing the work, don't worry. Yep. So he never let me take leave for these things. He was just like, no, take a couple of hours and come back. It's okay.
That's a point I wanted to mention earlier and forgot actually. But
yeah,
again, in the beginning days where I was going into the office, having the understanding manager at that point in time was really helpful because, like you said, there were so many calls. There's obviously an inquest going on. There's a hearing. There were just, I'd hate to even call it this, but there's so much admin.
Yes.
In that sense, where again that falls on the responsibility of me. But you're sitting there in the middle of the day at the office, and yeah, everyone's got life admin, or you get a random phone call that you take at work.
Yeah.
Imagine getting a call where it's the coroner's office and you're talking about your son that's passed away, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing at that moment, whether you're even in the right space to begin with or not, you can't just end that call and be like, okay, cool. What are we doing next?
No.
It's like, suddenly you don't just turn that off, right?
No.
So you can't just speak to a coroner about this, or You know what, like
You know, it was literally your baby's ashes are ready for collection. It was things
it was
like
things
that.
like that, or you
Yeah.
know, like yeah, exactly,
And then
or
the
like
hearing, and then we were in the
the
middle of the,
autopsy, and
yeah,
that was a long
we were
winded
in the middle of
period.
getting that report back as well,
We were
which we
signing the
got.
documents that we needed to sign,
Yep.
everything.
And there were so many drafts coming back as well, and we were
Yeah.
sending back. And then when we had the final report, it's actually that's the moment, and this was months in, where we learned what had actually happened. So
Oh God, yeah.
that was an extra added layer of trauma, because
Absolutely.
we hadn't initially blamed we didn't think it was the hospital's fault.
Not at first.
We were
No.
unsure.
Yeah.
So the fact we had that report back and we had the details of what had actually happened and what the staff had said,
Yep.
and yeah, that was horrible to read back on. I'd need an extra month off just from reading that, because I remember how upsetting that was for us. But I was going to say, it was, another blessing in disguise. I know a lot of people hated lockdown, but I feel like lockdown
For
saved
us.
my life,
Yeah.
actually.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think I would have done well if lockdown wasn't a thing, because, people were pushing us to go, not even, work is one thing, but people were pushing us to be social and be out because they thought it would help. When actually it was, I don't know if it was helping you. It was not good for me at all.
I don't know. For me, it's just it's a weird one, because I feel like I almost needed that Zen time for me.
Yeah.
I was such a kind of busy person, lively person,
Yeah, you're extremely
just
extroverted.
yeah, massively extroverted. And it's not to say that it did change me as a person, but it just it made me when I stopped working, I started, I actually, then I was at home and took that time off. I started working on myself and going for the walks, and I lost all my weight, and I did, all of those kind of things. The amount I learned about myself.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that you do hear sometimes like things like this happen, but they happen as a result of grief, or something, unfortunately, has to have happened in order for you to kind of become that part of yourself, or find that kind of part of yourself. But I feel like I did find a whole new kind of part of myself where it was just all about healing. It was all about no noise. And I think I needed that
You weren't
time to
distracted by
just,
life anymore suddenly.
yeah. And it's not even wasn't distracted. I was willingly not wanting to be distracted by life. So I actually appreciated
Yeah.
the alone time. I did some of my best thinking, some of my best healing on my own, in my own headspace. And by doing that, I could even give enough time and energy and focus on us. And although it wasn't a lot at that time, because as we've said before, the way we grieved was so different,
Very different, yeah.
it just made that time where we connected that much more powerful. Whether that was 10 minutes, whether that was, some nights it was literally a couple of sentences where I don't really want to talk about it tonight. Like, I just want to stay in my room, or whatever it was. When we did connect and we had either 10 minutes or we sat down for an hour, and then we went right back to whatever we were doing alone, how powerful was that time?
Yeah.
But as a guy, I was thinking, how can I
But if we had the added pressure of work on
That's what I
top of
mean.
that,
So, with all those extra responsibilities.
we wouldn't have been zen enough to actually have that communication.
Agreed. That's genuinely what I believe. And
It allowed us,
going back to your
yeah.
comment at the beginning about noticing things and things seeping through. Sometimes people don't notice it for themselves. Like, and I have seen it. Maybe not always just in the wake of grief, but I've seen, those kind of personas in the workplace as well. And you don't know what to feel. Suddenly you're overwhelmed. And those things don't just happen to women. They happen to men as well, right? So, and again, with the added pressure, responsibilities, you're taking it upon yourself to. It's so easy to just share that journey, and that doesn't mean sharing the responsibilities with you. It means sharing the emotion with you. So the more you talk about it,
Yeah.
and even disregarding grief for a minute, when we have other challenges in life, and I just come to you and I talk to you, we have a 5-minute conversation. It just eases my mind.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with something, or there's something that I know I need to get sorted out, you don't need to be the one to solve it.
Yeah. But sometimes verbalizing it allows you to understand your own thoughts, what's going on, and
Always.
actually find actual solution.
You're almost like
You're
an
talking to
honest.
yourself.
You are,
Yeah.
because again, you are me in that sense. It's like a good sounding board. Like, see, I've got
Yeah.
this to deal with. I'm whatever. Oh, I've got to do this, and you can almost breakingly kind of get to where you need to by just talking to you.
Saying things out loud allows you to give yourself an instruction back to you
Hundred
almost,
percent.
right? Especially when your brain now is not working because you are heavily deep in grief.
Yeah.
Saying things out loud, it is almost giving yourself an instruction. There's things that I'll think about, but if I say out loud, I'm like, oh wow, it's a light bulb moment for me, and I'm like, all right, this is what I need to do.
100%.
Talking therapy is amazing.
And going back to the topic at hand, it flows right into the kind of financial pressures that we are talking about, because again, that was my responsibility, or I'm trying to think about how to solve that issue.
Yeah.
Yes, we were very lucky, and I was very grateful that we had a really good kind of backing or safety net
Yeah.
at that time, and I was contracting, so I had the ability to take that time off. But you made that choice very easy as well, right? Because if a guy is at home not working, you're on maternity leave, you're still going through your own kind of pressures, and there could have been heated arguments where, we could have brought money into it and talked about it.
Yeah.
And I was feeling bad enough just having, the fact that I was taking the time. Oh, well, I was feeling really good that I'd taken the time off, but I was feeling really bad at the fact
Guilt. Yeah.
the guilt of taking the time off.
Yeah.
And all the time you would just say, listen, we're lucky we've got this. Why are you worried for now?
Yeah.
And that really helped me, because I feel like I would have probably gone back a lot sooner, or probably, whatever. But that you really gave me that kind of affirmation or that space to just let me be me.
I mean, what's that
just
safety
figure
net
out
for
my-
at the end of the day, right? Because
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
it was our rainy day.
Yeah.
I know
absolutely.
the thing is, when I think back, when I've thought back sometimes, I'm like, oh, we could have used that money for something else. And it's like,
Yeah.
but what's more important than this? Because this saved our lives, essentially. It did. It saved our life. We needed it so much. You can always build later.
100%.
And just for context, I mean, we lived in a flat in West London, and yeah, we made that decision, didn't we, as well, that we're gonna have to use this up, and eventually we had to put that flat on rent, and we did move back in with your parents temporarily, which was really, really great, and really
Yeah.
grateful that we had the options of very supportive parents, and that allowed us to get back on our feet very swiftly, actually. So it was
Definitely.
very lucky that, again, we're speaking from a place of privilege here, that we were able to do that. And I felt really guilty as well. Like, you were going to work, and I was like, oh my God, I should go back to work as well. But I just felt, I didn't feel, I felt like I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't leave the house for months, first of all. So that was one thing I was fighting. When lockdown finally lifted and I was going out, I was scared for a lot of different reasons. First, because I hadn't been out in a long time, just generally. Second, I now had a baby that I was very overprotective of. And then next, I was a different person as well, and I didn't know how people were going to accept me. And, the comments obviously come flying all the time. But when I did go back and back into real life, I guess, people were throwing horrible comments.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, what you're doing is unhealthy. You shouldn't be talking about grief. They'd, say all this to our family members as well, and say things like, oh, their grief is really unhealthy. They need to stop.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, whilst I was grieving, I did have an emotional eating issue. And of course, I was pregnant with my rainbow baby, which made things even more complicated because I was so upset. And I ended up being a massive emotional eater. And I ended up gaining God knows how much weight, but I was about 80 kgs, at that time. It was a lot. And people felt free to make comments about it to me. And it wasn't just like, oh, haha, you're really big, but people were like, oh, I mean, there was just a lot of comments on my weight, basically, that, you should do this and you should drink this and you should, and then I don't know why, but at least 3 people in a roundabout way basically said that you're too good for me and I better watch myself and be careful or you're going to leave me. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm already scared that I'm going to lose people in my life. And there's people laughing about it, saying, oh, your husband's going to leave you because you've put on weight from losing my child? Yeah. actually.
Yeah,
I just, the expectation was insane. I mean, women already have a ton of pressure to snap back after they've had a baby.
yeah, agreed.
And I've lost my baby, and I've still, like, you're still telling me to snap back. It was
Yeah,
very go back to work, snap back to your old body, be your normal self, stop being unhealthy, stop talking about grief. It was wild. So going back into that was terrifying.
mm,
And if I'm getting that on, I don't know, phone calls, text messages, occasional face-to-face meets, what's it going to be like when I go back to work and I'm really in the mix of things? It's going to be 10 times worse. I did not want to go and be back into it, just because, again, I was fearful of what was coming my way, even by accident, because that little comment made by one person really innocently, and they forget about it in an hour or two.
yeah.
It's still sitting with me. It's been
Of
years
course it
and it
will.
still sits with me, and they probably forgotten they said it in the first place.
You're gonna carry that now.
You're always going to carry it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
remember how it made me feel. It
But
made me feel not worthy. And I guess this is where my other problem came in regards to work, because I already felt not worthy.
mm,
And then I'm not working, so now I feel extra unworthy. And then suddenly, when time came for me to maybe return back to work, and I went back to one of my keep in touch days, as a business, they're going to look at what's going to be beneficial for them at that moment. So my old workplace where I was pregnant with Origin, they'd hired a new manager, and I didn't really know her very well. So both my manager and HR had decided that they, I guess, wanted to keep my male maternity cover.
yeah,
And when I went back, HR was like, "Oh, I need to take my dog for a walk. Why don't we go for a walk?" And I was like, "No, why don't we just have our meeting first?" But I could tell she really wanted to go and have this conversation outside. And I was like, "Oh God, I know what's coming." I just knew it. Sat down in a park, and and there it was, the whole basically offering money to leave my job, and don't worry, we'll have space for you later on.
mm,
And that was it. She was really trying to get me to accept that money, and she was like, there'll be space for you later. It's just, anyway, it came with a whole bunch of excuses. And when I said no, I'm happy to come back to work, and she'd be like, "Oh, but it's full time, it's 5 days a week, and will you be able to do that?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got full time care now, so my daughters will look after." I was getting desperate to have my job, because really I should have, everyone's allowed back to some degree. A lot of people allow the part-time working. That was off the table for me at this point. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I was just clawing at anything I could get to not lose this job suddenly. And suddenly I was like, I am not wanted here. My God, I am not wanted. It's just easier to keep this other person on. They are worried because they don't want to retrain me, because the new managers obviously changed the functionality of how we're doing processes. They didn't want to retrain me. They knew I'd maybe take time off for childcare, or I might take time off for therapy. They also knew, because at the time of the loss, they were being very empathetic and really great, actually.
mm,
So they knew that I'd be going through potential court cases and hearings and whatever. And as a business, that didn't sit well with them.
yeah.
I think they empathized as humans, but then that was removed when they thought about what impact it would have on the business and themselves. Because,
That's right.
HR was like, "Oh, your manager has their kids' GCSEs next year as well, so they're not going to have a lot of time to sit down and train you." And I was like, okay, great. So, yeah, that was that. So I felt extra unworthy after that. So returning back to that job that I then went back to 2 years later, or a year later, was terrifying. And I was trying not to tell them, like tell the wider team. I obviously ended up telling my manager, which landed very well. I was very blessed. But I was very careful from then on to tell people about the loss, because I thought, what if they don't hire me because I've had a loss, because they think I come with baggage?
Mm,
So I tend not to talk about it too much in professional spaces. And actually, where I am now, I'm properly back in the workplace now.
mm,
I put it on my CV that I took bereavement leave, because I was like, it will just eliminate any kind of, confusion. It's also on my LinkedIn.
mm,
With, by the way, a backing of what I did during my bereavement leave, because I feel the pressure to explain what I did in that space I took. It's not enough to just stay at home and heal and cry and just feel better. You have to have done something. You have to have turned your what they say, turning your pain into purpose, which is obviously amazing, but not everyone wants to do that.
Yeah,
I mostly
100%.
sat at home journaling and just crying and watching TV, and
Yeah.
that was my way of healing and just talking to you. Like you can't put that on your CV, sadly, but
No, you can't. But like I said, I completely get it. Again,
yeah,
as a guy, my way of dealing with it was to sit at home, have those talks with you as well,
yeah,
and go walking for 4 hours a day.
yeah.
How are you gonna explain that to anyone, right?
No,
Because you say
as a
those things in
guy,
the
you needed
sentence.
to heal. What?
Well, that first of all, but then every anyone you think of, and if I say to anyone truly that I took 13, 14 months off or whatever to go walking and lose some weight, and as in this is what people think is going on. They don't look at intricately. You're kind of fixing yourself from the inside out. You're understanding yourself.
Yeah,
But I say to loads and loads of people, unfortunately, I wish we never had to go through this experience, but unfortunately, I personally believe that I've learned things about myself that I wouldn't have learnt for another 20 years. Right? I've learnt that stuff early. And I know
yeah,
we've talked about this before and you feel kind of similar, but there's so many things that you kind of learn about life and we've been taught through going through this journey at
yeah.
this stage in life that I think wouldn't have come to a lot later. But
No, you're forced to kind of grow wise very quickly.
you are,
And
but
I would have, obviously, ignorance is bliss. I would have rather stay innocent my whole
yeah,
life. But,
yeah,
I say innocent. I mean, I've tasted grief from a young age, unfortunately. So I already knew what it was like. But also witnessing grief
mm,
in my household and
mm,
losing my sister and actually going through it myself, two very different things. I thought I
absolutely.
got grief. I really did. I thought, yeah, well, I've seen it. My parents went through it, so I know what it's about. My God, when you go through, it's so different when you go through it yourself. Like
Definitely.
it's completely different. But sorry, what I was going to say earlier, even with my current manager, um, it was it was incredible because, like I said, I didn't want to tell my manager that I'd gone through this in too much detail. Like I
Mm,
said, it was on my CV, it was on my LinkedIn, and that was it. But I feel like she was actually waiting for me to say it, and I think we were in a team night out, and she somehow brought it up like very very slowly, like, oh, how's life and whatever, and I ended up saying like, oh yeah, I don't know how it came up, but it did. And she was like, oh my God, Sia, I'm so glad you've brought this up, can I just give you a hug? And then she hugged me and she was like, I've been wanting to talk about this with you for such a long time. And that made me feel at ease. Like you were saying earlier, like with your manager at the time who made you
mm-hmm.
feel at ease. You need that. I literally melted in that moment and I was like, fab. Like I
Mm,
can open up, that I don't have to keep this professional front on. I can be my honest self. So if something's bugging me one day, I'm free to tell my work colleagues or my manager or whatever. And she was so great about it. And actually she'd gone through a loss as well.
mm.
And it ended up becoming a wider conversation at one point on a team outing, and I'd learnt that three people on that table had loss. So
Something you never would have known
no,
if
because
that
people don't talk
hadn't
about
happened.
it.
Exactly.
All these women that are putting on this front, and what it really makes you think that you think you know someone. And I was just so amazed because I was like, we're all coming to work, putting our professional faces on, and we don't even know that we've experienced this kind of loss.
Yeah.
And some people won't say at all.
Hmm.
They just get on with their work because there's a pressure. What if you don't perform as well, and they let go of you, or you're a burden. Yeah. There's so much that comes with it, or they think you're not working to your full capacity.
Mm. So,
It's
same with guys. I mean, at my last place where I was contracting, someone came up to me randomly and
yeah,
they'd seen one of our posts or they'd seen something. I can't remember what they'd seen, but they'd seen something on social media and
yeah,
they don't know. And I said, "Oh, that's Rick." And then they found out. They came to talk to me about it. Turns out that they had a loss as well, and that
oh, wow.
completely opened us up for a conversation, and we became a lot closer because of it. The more you talk about these things, the more other people will feel comfortable about
Yeah,
talking about it, and I think that's the main thing. But something else to kind of highlight that point was even when I did go back to work, I remember I still wasn't very much interested, but I just kind of knew it was getting to that point now where it'd been a long time. And weirdly, I'd become happy with the idea that I'd just kind of broken all ties, like profession. I don't mean with like people, but
Yeah.
broken ties with noise and responsibility.
Mm.
It's a really good place to be, but maybe also a little bit of a dangerous place to be. I don't know, because it got to a point where I was so confident in what I was trying to do in terms of understanding myself and what I needed at the time, where I didn't care about, some of the other things. But I think it was getting to a point where I did need to think, okay, I'm being kind of pushed to go back, or the same kind of
Yeah.
responsibilities do filter in, but I'd had a lot more time now to kind of accept that and understand how they might come in. So it wasn't just, oh, I've just got a responsibility to go back to work. I need to go back to work. It was more, I know I need to do this thing. How do I do it on my terms? And weirdly, like the safety net was obviously dwindling a little bit, but I remember at that point I still didn't want kind of responsibility. I didn't want a kind of managerial role
Yeah.
or a lead role. I just didn't want to invite that back
Yeah.
into my life. And
Which is why I went back to like a graduate
well,
role,
exactly.
because I was like, how can I get away with the bare minimum but still earn enough money to kind of keep it going? Oh,
And
yeah.
that's and it's funny because I had that exact same mindset, and as you know, the role that I took was just a basic role. Um,
I,
and
I didn't feel worthy of my job. I was sitting with a bunch of graduates that were like 10 years younger than me. And even then, I was just like, I felt like I couldn't give as much. And I was taking so long to learn the most basic processes at work as well. It was absolutely insane. And the worst thing was, obviously, my CV is my CV and my experience is my experience. But how do you explain to someone that my brain stopped working now?
yeah,
So everything that's on here, I don't know it anymore.
mm,
And my CV has very like it says advanced level Excel and whatever, which was true in 20 pre 2019. And when my manager saw that, he was like, "Oh, great! Like you're really good at Excel." And it just rolled off my tongue like, "Yeah, I'm really good." Because that's what I'm used to saying, and that's what was once true. And I said that, and I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know if this is true anymore."
mm,
And then he was like, "Do you know what? It'd be really great if you can do like a presentation for people to learn a few bits." Because I worked with the majority of the company were project managers
mm,
who did their role. Obviously, really, they didn't touch on Excel too much, but they wanted to learn little tricks. And he was like, "It'd be great if you could do a presentation on Excel." And I was like, "Oh my God." And he was like, "Yeah, there'll be roughly like 300-400 people." And I was like, "What?" And I can't say no.
mm.
So now I'm like, I don't know advanced level Excel. I don't think. I don't know. And I was just panicking because I was just like, oh my God, I needed to, I didn't have a lot of time to refresh my own memory now on everything I'd ever learnt.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was sitting in a state of anxiety for just two whole weeks, like prepping myself for this presentation for 300-400 people. And it was a great way to dive right back in, to be fair. It pressured me into relearning everything really quickly, but God, it was just such a
Yeah.
horrendous 2 weeks. It went well, by the way. I think everyone left that presentation with with a lot of knowledge, I
But I
hope.
think it is really important because, it's like you're saying, it's on your own terms, and I think that's the main thing about all of this is I haven't seen like people or how they have to deal with the situations. That it's that the pressure of that immediate responsibility, but is just what wasn't doing it for me. But doing it on my own terms, like I said, I took that crummy job. I didn't want no responsibility, and that was genuinely the purpose I took that. I knew it was a little bit of money, fine. It'll just get me doing
Yeah.
something. I was kind of getting there, but I was doing it on my
You have
terms.
to start again,
And
honestly.
yeah, you
Yeah.
really do. But I, and it wasn't because I have to do this. I knew I needed to do it, and I wanted to do it. It's not that it wasn't in there,
Yeah.
but like I said, I just wanted to do it on my terms, and I started that role. Really little money, nowhere near what my kind of level that I'm normally at. It wasn't even contracting. If you remember, I took a fixed term,
Oh my God, you took a perm roll, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I took a
For the
fixed term
first time.
role, yeah,
Yeah.
and because I just couldn't be bothered. I just wanted something just to get
Yeah.
by. And in doing that, I was kind of then kind of bumping myself up and kind of I was getting bored with this, with some things, and I was getting a bit frustrated because things could be done better. But I was slowly reintroducing back on my terms
Yeah.
the way I work, or what I what I enjoyed about working, and that whole kind of thing that I'd lost, the passion that I'd lost, it was coming back in certain elements. And then only after then is when things started to kind of change. And again, it doesn't mean that it's a full like recovery. It doesn't mean that that's it. Now that I'm back in the place where I can work, nothing else matters now. Origin doesn't matter. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. It's about integrating that old passion for what you do as a living into that new journey, that new person. That you're still fundamentally a new kind of person. Um, how do you marry the two back together, right?
Do you think workplaces ever focus on like on these issues?
Not enough.
I don't think I've ever been somewhere where they've done any sort of training on grief or
No, I'm seeing a few more conversations happen. Like even if you
there
look
are
on
charities now that
there
train parents to do
there
these
are
presentations in the workplace,
yeah
which is really good to see.
there are, but not necessarily just for like the mental health, but like even where I am now, over the last kind of month or so, they're coming out with like work yoga sessions, or
But I mean
there's
specific to baby
no
loss
that no oh no
because they're
definitely not towards baby
it's
loss.
very specific, you know. I think
Absolutely.
mental
Sorry, I
health
thought you meant like
absolute
mental health and
well,
grief.
mental health great,
Um,
yeah, but you know,
no, nothing specific to baby loss.
yeah, I've
And
never seen
there's
it.
definitely a big space in it.
There
But
needs to be because look how common baby loss is and how
yeah,
much it actually impacts people.
yeah,
And there's no training on it at work. Like, you know, I think when I did lose Origin, obviously I was pregnant at work, everybody knew. I wonder if they were given a talk or was it just an email that everyone sad news, you know, Cetus baby's passed away.
it's a really good point.
They may have needed support actually.
Yeah,
So was there something in place where they did that? Because that's quite that. I mean, if my colleague lost a child, I'd be traumatized too.
mm,
Because especially if we're close,
mm,
and that's my. I know so many of my friends when they found out that Arjun had passed, they had to go home.
mm.
There were people that we have friends who are obviously business owners as well. They had to shut their business down for the day
That's
and
right. I
go
remember.
home,
Yeah,
and they really struggled. Some people took time out. I mean, one of our friends didn't do their exams,
mm.
medical exams, which were coming up in 3 weeks' time because they were traumatized basically by our loss.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think there's a
It's a really good point, to be fair. Like thinking off the top of my head, actually. We talk a lot about what kind of in a social environment what we expect from people, but that kind of awkwardness or silence that happens in a social space, you're actually right. In a workspace, do people actually think about that relationship at work, right? Because if someone's awkward at work, as they would be socially, so but in social circumstances, it would be a different conversation or no conversation. At work, you can't really escape that. What if someone's awkward about the situation there, or doesn't know
Mhm.
what to say about it, and then that kind of comes through in terms of work that they might be demanding from you, or responsibilities that they might put on you at work. And just thinking aloud, to be fair, but that's a really good point, because the same way we think about those relationships outside of work or socially, and the awkward silence, the absence, and everything, people don't have a choice or an option to do that at work. You're still in that environment. You're forced into it. So what is the conversation around that? Or I think clearly what we're saying, there's not a lot of conversation.
Yeah, and there definitely needs to be because it's
There
it's
definitely
it's
needs to be,
huge.
because the few people that we know at work who have experienced the same thing
Yeah,
talk about it loads, right? So suddenly you've opened up a
yeah.
complete
One person
conversation
talks
with
about it, and suddenly
that's it,
it's a wonderful conversation about
100%.
it,
Yeah,
and everyone really opens up. But
yeah,
it's people are still tiptoeing. They don't want to reveal too much about it. But you
no,
know, we spend so much of our day to day, our whole week, mostly at work and with our colleagues.
yeah,
And there has to be something in place in workspaces where, a grieving person is understood, because that's where we are majority of our time. And if there isn't, then what hope do we have? I mean, wellness and mental health is a huge topic, but grief is very, very, especially grief when it's a baby, it's very niche. It hits in a different way. There's a huge domino effect of the back of losing your child. And there has to be support in place for that.
I think that's a perfect thing to say, the domino effect, because that's the bit that people don't often get, or even after so much time, people don't expect you to be experiencing
People don't even
some of those
consider
effects from that domino.
baby loss. You know what? I saw something recently where they were showing the stats of what is the most stressful kind of loss. So there was like losing a pet, there was losing mum,
Pet's
dad,
up there.
grandparents, and the top one was losing your partner. There was nothing on that list that said losing a baby or a child. And so many people, I can imagine, were just screaming looking at those numbers, because how is losing your child not somewhere on that list, if not at the top, And I was like, it's so funny, because it's one of those losses, again, and I know we said this before, where your brain doesn't even allow you to think about it. People don't even consider baby or child loss, because it's not in the natural order of loss. So
it's not. So
your brain doesn't even allow you
oversight.
to think that this can happen. And then it was left off this very important list, because how is it not one of the most stressful types of losses? It is. It's terrible. Yeah, any loss is devastating.
But isn't that just a perfect example for everything we're talking about?
It's not even considered as baby loss is not a factor.
Such an important report like that, and it can be missed off.
Yeah.
How many people out there are there that just see it as an oversight or don't think about it? It still baffles.
And this is why people do need to talk about it. So when anyone's
100%.
saying, oh, your grief is unhealthy and you need to stop, do I? Because this topic is so key and so important. People are out there suffering on their own in silence, and
they still are.
And this is the reason why we're doing this in the first place, because
100%.
I remember how I felt when I was going through, loss, the early days, the issues at work. I'm hoping there's, no one else has to feel the way I did. There's very little out there. There needs to be so much more. There needs to be so much more support.
Yeah, if I'm brutally honest, there's people out there that could use the help. There's people out there who could be challenged, and that's still a big part of it as well.
Yes,
so not a negative point, but there's people out there who need to be challenged on some of these, because there's people that have been close with us. Some of my friends, some of your friends, or some people that we know, even those people that are close to us can be challenged on the way they've thought about this, or the way that they've been interacting
because they're not aware of how devastating it truly is.
100%. And therefore the decisions that they're making is based on a certain criteria, which is
based off their own experience and their hypothetical kind of version of what they've created in their head and what our loss is.
100%. And stigma is again, like we've always said from the beginning, it's no one's fault. It's absolutely no one's fault. But and it doesn't mean that there's a full responsibility on other people, but there is somewhat a responsibility on people. If you know someone that's experienced something, what are the kind of things to do? Don't follow the stigmas, like like address these things. So yes, there's that whole demographic of people that can be helped, and hopefully what we do or what we say might resonate with someone or help. That's utmost what we want. But challenge people, challenge those opinions, because ultimately in challenging and questioning and talking to people about it, talking to all of you about it, it will introduce more conversation, right?
There's a lot of learning still left.
So much learning to do, but you can be a better friend, you can be a better colleague, you can be so much better just by making a few small tweaks and talking about it.
Absolutely.
And that's always the crux of what we do, just talk, be open.
Exactly. And that was a good conversation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it was.
It's an important one as well. The grief in the workplace definitely needs to be talked about
Definitely.
so much more. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. That was really good. We'll be back with our next episode, hopefully sooner than we have put out this one. But yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks all.